This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome to the latest, the freshest edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I'm your host, Vito Jerome Chirco, for this rather somber edition, at least, of Tigers Talk. Doc, how did the losing over the weekend and the knocking out of the Tigers officially from postseason contention, how did that affect you, Doc, to start off here, as Doc is alongside me as usual?
Well, first, welcome to episode 60. Good job, sir. 60 episodes of some great baseball content. I'm really proud of what you've done with this project. And the weekend that was for Detroit sports in general was pretty awful. But in regards to the Detroit Tigers, I'm kind of glad it ended. This was a team that had a lot of expectations, but a lot of people felt going into the season that this team probably wasn't going to be a playoff team. You said it. A lot of the media said it. But when you have a $200 million payroll, then your expectations have to be get at least to the postseason, and they fell well short of that. And it's disappointing all the way around. There's lots to talk about regarding the manager, looking back at what the hell happened this year. But when you look at it all around, it's an epic disappointment. I feel really sad, and I'm kind of bummed out because it's now something when you look at the Tigers, the window to win a world championship, I believe, is closed for the time being. Now, it can be reopened again if these starting pitchers can, in the future, step up and take that next step. But that's a big maybe as we're sitting here today in early October, sitting outside the postseason. So I'm relatively bummed out, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the management of the Tigers does now with the manager and what they're going to do with this payroll and how they're going to reshape this team. Unfortunately, as we're looking at it, it needs to be rebuilt.
Simply put, the window's not closing down, though. No, not yet. So put a stop on that.
No, if you're saying that the window is not closed, I think what you're looking at is, though, a new house. Because this unit with Miguel, with JV, I don't see a world championship out of it, not in the next 3 years. You're gonna think that this team's gonna win a World Series with Fulmer, Boyd, Norris in 2017? Come on now.
Why not? Verlander's Verlander, as good as he was this year. He could be the Cy Young winner, actually, this year. Did you know that, how good his stats are? And we'll talk about, as a little segging into something later on in the podcast, about the Cy Young rankings and who should win the American League Cy Young. Verlander is in the top 5 in my rankings for who should win the American League Cy Young in 2016. He was that good with the strikeouts, league-leading amount of strikeouts. Anyways, though, Verlander, Norris, and Fulmer. That's a good 1 through 3 for next year to build upon, to win with as well, Doc.
So you're assuming that Justin's even on this squad next year?
Well, come on. You think he's going to get traded to get rid of that salary? I know he had a great season, okay, and is valuable. It's highly valuable. He had the highest WAR among all American League pitchers, okay, in 2016. But still, with that hefty contract, I don't see them being able to deal him, nor do I see them being willing to deal him right now, Doc.
He did the best that he could to help the Tigers because if a team looks at those numbers and they go, okay, if he can reproduce that anywhere near that, then he becomes a valuable commodity and one that I think a team like the Cubs, a team like the Red Sox, a team like the Dodgers could throw some hefty minor league talent and some potential prospects that could get you a big return. So if an offer is made, I'm definitely sure Al Avila will listen to it. And I'm sitting here right now willing to say Al Avila should open the phone lines to all the general managers and say, hey, give me your best offer for Justin Verlander, and I think they could make a real deal here.
Doc, why are you moving on? Why are you packing the bags on the pursuit of something?
I'm building a new house. I'm building a new house.
You're building a new house, and the house is already stable enough, though.
No, it isn't.
It's sturdy enough. Why are you moving on and building a new house? It's like the Braves, what they did. They had Turner Field for how long there? It was built because of the Olympics. And they had it since, I think, 1997. They closed the doors on Turner Field this past weekend against the Tigers. Last series ever. And that was a short span of time for having a ballpark, a major league ballpark that wasn't that deficient or ugly looking, and you close it down that quickly, and you're going to close down now, as an analogy here, close down the window on the Tigers that quickly and move into another house when there's already been a house built that's stable enough. And Avila, I think, did all right. He helped supply some stability to this ball club to help it be what it was and to help it, I think, even now next year become better. If the guys, though, are as healthy, a guy like Verlander's got to be really healthy, too.
See, Vito, talking to you has opened up my creativity. The Tigers, foreclosed home, baby. I'm sorry.
You're foreclosing it? I mean, they won 86 games. And their defense, they wasted opportunities to make the playoffs, but they won 86 ball games.
They were in very much bad debt in 2015. Then they brought on, a manager they thought was going to rebuild everything and could carry a team with high expectations to the next level. Unfortunately, the money ran out and the bills are due, and the Tigers, bum, bum, bum. It's it. It's done. The house is foreclosed. It's time to, regroup and look to, reestablish their credibility, and start all over, because this unit collectively isn't good enough. And, we're still looking at the bullpen and wondering, when's it going to be rebuilt?
It's got to be this offseason. If you do that, you revamp it totally. And
you can't.
A total revamp. You need a total revamp. Why not?
You can't.
Teams do it yes, they do. From offseason to offseason, they do it. Teams do it.
Not Tigers.
Tigers have it. They are going to do it. Alavila, he's smart at all. He's going to do it in the 2017 offseason, before the 2017 campaign, to build a team that's a winner in 2017. That's what he has to do.
You know what you are, Vito? And to use a home metaphor, you're like the guy that gets all excited when he gets pre-approved for a mortgage, and you're like, Doc, I got pre-approved for $250,000 on a mortgage, and I'm like, sweet, Vito, go ahead, go sign the deal. Then when it comes time for the mortgage company to actually cut the check, and they're like, well, we noticed that you've kind of haven't been making any money the last couple of years, and they go, sorry, you can't get that house that you really love in Macomb there. I'm sorry. Go down further where the clowns are in Clinton Township.
Yeah, get scared out where I am right now with my parents. I think there was one right by my house at a car wash. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
That would have freaked me out. I can't deal with clowns either. But anyways, back on the topic of the Tigers, and you're closing up shop. You're giving up hope. How many times have you just, flipped your choice with the Tigers just dramatically till you go from one extreme to the next that quickly? You are so dramatic.
Quickly, I'm starting my process at 2014 when they hired Brad Ausmus. 2014 season, 2015 season, 2016 season, no playoff success, no playoff wins.
But you're a flip-flopper still. You've had hope. Remember, you regained hope. You were off the bandwagon for a while. You regained the hope. Now you're back right off the bandwagon again. Now, you did say before I did that the season was over. You said a long time ago in the season. But like I said, you regained that momentum, that optimism, that hope, that confidence, all the above about the Tigers. And now you're right back off the bandwagon again and foreclosing your hope, saying it's the right thing to foreclose the house at this point.
Yes, and I think they might need to relocate to a whole other country.
Is that bad?
I would say,
God, what team did you watch this season, Doc?
Youth movement. I think it's time. Vito, listen, if you look at it now collectively, I've had a whole season. Of course, I was excited when they played well. I thought they could carry it on, but when it came time, crunch time, in order for them to produce, they just didn't do it. They collectively as a unit, the relievers, the starters, the offense and the defense combined as a team did not come through. And so once they hired Brad Ausmus, my first take on Brad Ausmus was this is not the right hire. But I have hope that, they have key players. There were great moments. But in the end now, when we're talking about it today, on Tuesday, as of this podcast recording, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, my goal, step one, is to win a World Series. And so if that's the goal, you go, okay, are you really going to get there with an aging Victor Martinez who can't even come close to getting a double, even if he smashes the hell out of the baseball? Are you going to get there with a bullpen that you thought had key additions, but they faded way in the end? Are you going to get there with two starters who are going to be in their 30s? And then you're going to go with two starters in their 30s who might be injury prone, and then you're going to go with a bunch of young talent in their second and third years of pitching experience. And that's the team you want to go and say, okay, we're going to take it to the next level and go to the World Series? Come on now. This is the Tigers are the definition as built of a boom or bust team. And I would say it needs to be rebuilt, get more hitters, and not so much where you're relying on the 2 to 3 run home run to get you in games, because when they don't score, they don't score. I need younger talent. I need to go all the way with it, and we need more depth. And so how do you do that? Through the draft, through trades. It's time to, in my opinion, go all the way with it, stop half-assing it. And I don't think, though, this payroll. Now, if you're telling me on the other end, Doc, Alavila is going to drop $250 million, then we're good. We can keep this.
So you're saying go all in, as you talked about before. And that was remember I asked you on Twitter this past weekend what to do with the Tigers now going into the offseason. And you said
$250 million payroll. Go more. If you want to keep going, bring in some more high-priced free agents and see about keeping this thing going. But that's not the talk that's kind of been swirling around, is that it's going to be cut. The payroll is going to be cut. They can't sustain it. How do you sustain it? I don't understand. How do you sustain a payroll that high when your attendance has dropped 20%? That'd be awesome. It'd be awesome. It was like, oh, okay, we'll just keep dropping attendance 20% and raising payroll. That's a real solid business model there, Vito.
That makes no sense. I got you. So you trim some payroll. You trim it a little bit. You don't trim it extremely and get rid of everybody and revamp your whole entire ball club and go into a full-fledged rebuilding mode. It's not worth it at this point. And you brought up the rotation. Those two youngsters you brought up who are 2-3 years into their major league careers, going into next season, well, guess what? Norris and Fulmer, two of those guys specifically, are full-fledged starting arms that are bona fide number 2s, number 3s already. Fulmer's going to win the Rookie of the Year, was not an MVP, but a Cy Young candidate at one point this season as well. I mean, he was good enough with those kind of numbers, was in contention for the AL ERA title at the end of the season. I mean, he was almost that good to win the AL ERA title, Doc. So they're still good. They're legit, and Verlander's legit. I don't see him slowing down quite yet. Has another high-quality season at least. And Zimmerman, he's got to be healthy. We know that. We don't know what to expect with him because of his injuries and injury past. But if they get him back and healthy, and that means effective as well with a good amount of health, well, then you got a good 5-man rotation with Matt Boyd as your number 5. And that means getting rid of Anibal from the rotation. Mike Pelfrey, I think just cutting ties with him completely and moving on from him, that means completely, because there's no spot. There's no reason to keep him on the ball club at this point. He brings no kind of value to the Tigers ball club, even in a long relief spot in the bullpen, where Sanchez might be able to bring some kind of value in a long relief kind of role in the bullpen. Buck Farmer maybe even can. As crazy as that sounds, maybe he can be a long reliever and pitch 2 innings out of the pen, where he could be more effective, as Sanchez has proven at times, and even Farmer a little bit here and there. Neither of those guys are great, effective number 5s anymore. They can't do that, but I'm saying there are spots for those guys, and the guys that should be in the 5-man rotation next year are no slouches, Doc. And you're giving up. You're moving on from this house, foreclosing this house already, when you know that's the case going into next season, that you have a solid 1 through 3 at least, if not a solid 1 through 4 with Zimmerman being taken into account, and maybe even a solid 1 through 5 with Matt Boyd being taken into account if he takes another step forward as a major league starting arm, which you can't put it past him at his young age. And the rotation only, with that being said, if you had Boyd, if you had Norris, if you had Fulmer in the rotation, making up, that's 3/5 of your rotation, 60% if I do my math right here. That's 3/5 and 60% of your rotation being young. And you're giving up hope already and just jumping ship, moving into a new house. That's where I don't like that you're moving into a new house, because they are relatively young still in that rotation.
Okay, and so I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly, and I think this is what the debate a lot of people are having is that, okay, the job of the general manager is not only to sustain success currently, but also to look to the future, okay? And so right now we're stuck in what most people call a purgatory, where they're right there on the cusp of the postseason, but if they were to get to the postseason, again, you can't really win with a boom or bust kind of offense unless everybody got hot and sustained that success for the better part of a month. Remember, you can win a game or two versus these elite teams, but you're gonna have to go up against Boston, who's not gonna stop spending. You're gonna go up against Toronto. You're gonna go up against the likes of Cleveland, who's got a young staff and they got a lot of talent on that squad. And so then you go, okay, how do I get to the next step? Okay, so then you say, okay, Vito, you can stay the course right now and maybe trim a couple pieces, move 1 or 2 guys, and add a couple pieces here and there. But where's that gonna get you? Is that gonna get you to the ALCS? Is that going to get you maybe a game or 2 into the World Series? I want to win the entire thing. And so I'm saying if you add, let's say, 3 players each for Justin Verlander, Miguel Cabrera, J.D. Martinez, Victor Martinez.
You think they're all going? Are you telling me that now, though?
No,
they're all going?
What I'm saying is if you could average 2 to 3 players, 2 to 3 major league quality players or talent that's maybe on the verge of coming alongside one everyday player, then you could add potentially a lot of depth to this organization in the minors and on the team. And so I say to myself, okay, you could have, Miguel Cabrera bashing 30 home runs every year here and being 1 game out of the postseason every year. Or you say, you know what? You build a team full of Nick Castellanos, full of JDs, and instead of going for guys that are like the top end, instead of 5-star players, you go with 8 4-star players instead of 3 5-star and the rest role players. Maybe just scale it back a little bit on the superstars and get a bunch of role players that can hit the baseball, get some doubles, that can steal bases, that can, if they're in the outfield, can throw guys out or hit a cutoff man. some more fundamentally sound.
Even that sounds, it was difficult. I mean, it sounds so easy, but they need that too.
More fundamentally sound role players and more reliable relief help in the bullpen. And then you could say, okay, you add 4 to 5 of those guys. Maybe I could do without all this sexiness with Victor, Miguel, and JV. Those 3, I'm saying for me, I'm starting to wane in my desire to keep them on the team. Now they're going to be here, yeah, because their contracts are huge. It's going to take a big-time offer to get them off of the team. But in my opinion, as I'm sitting here, I'm starting to feel like, it's my interest in seeing those guys has waned. They've done a great job. They've done the absolute best. But what I'm saying is, in baseball and in life, buy low, sell high. And you got very, very low. You traded for Miguel Cabrera for relatively nothing. And now you could probably sell him at the highest point of all time.
Maybe not, because of his salary, because of his age, because of the age of Verlander. Same thing applies to him and his hefty contract. And you brought up the wrong thing that you brought up was dealing Justin Verlander. If you want to trim payroll and kind of start retooling for next season and the future to get younger, you deal a guy like Ian Kinsler, whose contract is almost up, who tailed off, his production tailed off.
Yep, or JD.
He's young and solid right now, though, JD. And you might have to pay a lot of money to keep him here, to re-sign him and make him a Tiger for the long haul. So maybe you deal JD even. If I say you keep JD, you trade an aging vet like an Ian Kinsler, who is due for a new payday coming up soon and might not be the best Ian Kinsler that he can be next season because of the fact that his age is up there now. So I would say try to deal him. You get rid of his salary and you move on and get younger subsequently that way. So think about dealing him instead of a JV or Miguel Cabrera. Those guys that have even heftier contracts and really are unmovable because of that, or with that being said, Doc. So I don't think that's the solution. It's not dealing JV. It's not dealing Miguel Cabrera. Those are legacy kind of guys with the Tigers. They want those guys to retire as Tigers, and they make the Hall of Fame. If Verlander makes it one day, Miguel Cabrera will make it. They want those guys to don the Tigers uni, the Tigers hat when they retire, and make the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. So that's the reason right there. A reason enough, in my opinion, for why you have to keep those guys. And because at the same time, they're still productive. Now, another guy you brought up, Victor Martinez, not so productive. Tailed off big time in the last month of the season, was not producing in timely situations at all, VMart. Hit low 200s, very poor, and didn't produce consistently enough. He's a guy you might want to move on from. Thing is, the Tigers front office brass, they want to. Thing is, at his age, they're not going to be able to. With his contract, his inability to move around the base paths, he is so slow. How slow is he right now, Doc? The slowest base runner in baseball, almost. Even though I saw Matt Kemp the other day run for the Braves. Didn't look too appeasing either. For a younger guy than Vmart. But Vmart is, the sad truth regarding him is that he's reaching the point in his career where he'll be on the downside of his career extremely sooner than later. And I think you're starting to see that with a declined amount of production and his inability not only to move around the base paths, but to field the position. Now, we know he's a DH, so don't have to worry about the fielding too much. And the speed, he never had great speed, but we see none of that out of him now. We can't even do anything with him in terms of those two factors or aspects of playing Major League Baseball. And then his hitting, what his calling card is, right? That's what he's known for. His hitting has tailed off and was really miserable down the stretch in September specifically. So that's a guy you want to move on from. The thing is, what I'm trying to say here to sum it all up, Doc, is that you probably can't move him with this contract right now at his age.
Man, Vito, I've never seen a segment talking baseball fly by so fast. We just turn on the microphone, let it rip, and
we just did.
19 minutes later, and you said you got a guest on the line ready to chat. Who are we going to talk to as I dial him up?
We have Dave Hogg of the Associated Press and today's Knuckleball.com joining us in just a few minutes here on episode 60 of Tigers Talk.
Okay, let me dial him up, and then let's see what his take is on the 2016 season. And I'm very curious as to what you have for Dave Hogg.
And now joining me on episode number 60 of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company is Dave Hogg of the AP and today's Knuckleball.com. Dave, how's it going today?
Good, very good.
Well, very good to have you on. It's been a long time and too long here, and we're going to start off by talking about the Tigers and their woes and failing to get into the postseason in 2016 when it was almost assumed, I would say almost assumed towards the end with how these other teams are playing, how the Tigers showed signs of life and really good, high-quality life that they could get in. But then they didn't have enough. They weren't consistent enough all year long, it seemed like, Dave. And it seemed like that from the get-go with this Tigers season. Could you elaborate on why you think they were so inconsistent as a collective whole throughout the 2016 campaign?
Well, I think going into the season, they had a lot of, especially for a roster that was a $200 million payroll, they had a lot of question marks going in, and a lot of them came back to bite them. One of the things was they just couldn't put together a consistent offense because there were too many times where one player was trying to carry the whole team. A lot of the season, that was Miguel Cabrera. Parts of the year, it was J.D. Martinez, especially when he came back from being injured. And then down the stretch, it was Justin Upton. But they never got everybody rolling at the same time. They'd have a 6 or 7 game stretch where they'd score 8 or 9 runs a game. And they had one of those stretches in the last couple weeks of the season that got them right back into contention after they looked like they were out of it, but they couldn't hold together. And then the 2 days they slump are against Aaron Blair and Julio Teheran, not exactly two household names, the last 2 games of the season, where if they win those 2 games, they're right in it. They would have been playing yesterday for a shot to get into the wild card game.
Dave, did you think they were going to end up playing that game 162 on this past Monday because of, as you said, what was set up for them? It looked like a high-quality chance to get into that game 162 at least, to try to reach that one-game wildcard playoff subsequently.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna make it, especially because the Jays looked like they were stumbling down the stretch, and for a long time I had thought it was gonna come down to Baltimore. I thought Toronto would get in because Toronto's offense is just so good, and they had the better pitching. I thought, okay, it's going to be coming down to Baltimore, but Baltimore got hot against the Yankees. They got in, and then Toronto was struggling against the Red Sox, but the Tigers couldn't take advantage. I thought they would at least get to Monday.
I thought so, too. I thought it set itself up perfectly with who the Jays had to play, who the Orioles, and I thought originally the Orioles, too, and then the Jays started slumping as well, even though they had the better, and especially frontline starting arms in the O's with Chris Tillman and Kevin Gossman. And now you have those 2 teams playing in the one-game wildcard playoff, Dave, and what do you think is going to happen in that one-game AL wildcard playoff?
It's really hard to say because both of those teams, I mean, Baltimore can go out, hit 6 home runs off anybody, and Toronto's got a great offense. I still think the Jays are a little bit better team, so I think it's going to be that they'll be the ones that come out. But with those 2 offenses, it's really hard to say.
And Dave, how about the NL wildcard playoff game? What are your thoughts on that? And who is going to end up coming out on top?
It's an even-numbered year. So, you just have to assume the Giants are going to win everything.
Well, right? I mean, how good is Bumgarner, Tim? I mean, how good have we come to accept that Bumgarner is his top-notch ace in the postseason? And I think nobody can touch him. I mean, that's what he's showcased hugely in recent memory, too, in the postseason for the Giants.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I had to pick one pitcher to start a postseason game, how could you pick against him? I mean, the only other conceivable guy I would consider would be Verlander, because Verlander is so great late in the season and the postseason. But how could you pick against Bumgarner in a postseason game?
I don't know who can really touch him, and I think he's the best of the best. He is for a postseason start at this point. Verlander in the AL, I think, is the man. Now, is he the man to win the AL Cy Young, though, in 2016 after his impressive campaign where he wasn't expected to produce this highly, to produce this great of effective baseball every 5th day that he started for the Tigers? And he did. He got it done and in a big-time fashion, leading the American League in strikeouts, and he was, just to sum it all up, terrific. But he has competition for the Cy Young this season from Corey Kluber, Aaron Sanchez, Masahiro Tanaka, Rick Porcello, all his wins with the Bo Sox. A lot of guys are competing with Verlander for that Cy Young award this season. Now, will JV end up receiving the award, you think, this year, though? What's your opinion?
I don't think he'll win it. I think he's as good a candidate as anyone. I suspect Rick Porcello is going to win. And I can't argue with that. I mean, Rick Porcello had a fantastic year, and a lot of people are saying, okay, well, he's getting overrated because of the number of wins. And he will get some votes because of the number of wins, but he had a fantastic season as a pitcher. This is the season the Tiger fans were waiting for years, because everybody knew he had the potential to have a really breakout big season. And this was the year that everybody was waiting for, and he had it for Boston. And I think between the media attention that he'll get for Boston and the number of wins and the back of the supporting statistics he has, I think he'll win it. I think Verlander's as good a candidate as anybody, but it's a really close race. You could argue for Kluber, you could argue for Britton, but I think it'll end up being Porcello.
Now, Dave, what do you look at for stats for a pitcher when you determine whether or not that guy should win the Cy Young? I mean, I've looked at WAR according to Baseball Reference, ERA plus, FIP, fielding independent pitching, that is, for these starting arms. And, Verlander leads the American League in WAR among starting pitchers with 6.6 WAR according to Baseball Reference from this season, specifically. Kluber is right behind him at 6.5 WAR. And you have ERA plus, the leader is Kluber, once again in that, and FIP, it is Kluber. So, I mean, you have these stats to use. What is the one that is more of the go-to stat for you when determining whether a guy should win the Cy Young?
For me, the same ones you just mentioned. The first thing I'm going to look at is WAR, and I look at WAR with pitchers, especially. I look at WAR on Baseball Reference, not Fangraphs. As a predictor, Fangraphs is great because they base their WAR on FIP, but I'd rather see it based on ERA when we're talking about giving an award to somebody for what they've done this year. So that's the first thing I look at. I look at ERA. I look at ERA plus. I look at WHIP. I think WHIP is something that and Porcello was great in that. They were all, and Kluber. If Kluber wins, I certainly won't argue.
Yeah, I mean he's deserving.
If Verlander wins, I won't argue. If Kluber wins, any of these guys, because there was no dominant pitcher this year in the American League, and you look at all those stats. I think any of them can win. Porcello is just my. If I had to bet on who is going to win, I would bet on Porcello.
Yeah, really, the top three could be sliced any way you choose it, with Verlander, Kluber, and Porcello in the American League with their impressive campaigns. But none of them were entirely dominant, and even Justin Verlander. But, as you said, more than good enough, and I would not mind it either if he won, if Kluber won, or if Ricky P. and Beantown won there. Now, American League Manager of the Year, I wanted to get into that conversation now here, Dave, and there are some interesting candidates, such as Joe Girardi of the Yankees, really any of the managers of the respective division winners in baseball this season as well, I think are relevant candidates. Now, who is your choice, though, to win the American League Manager of the Year this season?
I think this year I would have to go with Terry Francona. Cleveland had a lot of things go wrong and still managed to win that division going away. And, again, he's not a lock. I mean, I would look at John Farrell. I would even the two wild card managers from the AL East. But I think I would lean toward Francona.
Now, how about Brad Ausmus? Is he a legit candidate for winning the Manager of the Year? Because I saw Peter Gammon say something about that earlier on in the second half of this campaign, and he did lead the Tigers to a 12-win improvement from last year. So, any validity with him being a Manager of the Year candidate?
It's hard to say with Brad because I see him up close, so you see the mistakes he makes, and they seem magnified, and you don't see that with any other manager 162 games this season. Strictly on paper, I can see the argument. I wouldn't vote for him. I don't think the Tigers falling short is entirely on him. I think there was a lot of flaws in the roster. But, if I were an outside person looking at the fact that he improved the Tigers by 12 games, that's one thing. But the other thing is they had a $200 million payroll and didn't make the postseason.
Yeah, that's a big red flag right there. I think a reason why he might be, or should be, fired at least. Now, give me this now. A two-part question here, Dave. Do you think Avila will fire him? And then do you think he should be fired?
I don't think he will. I think there are better options. I think people in Detroit are blaming Brad too much. I think there were a lot of other things went wrong, and a lot of that I think falls on Avila, who didn't have a fantastic offseason as his first offseason as the Tigers general manager. There were a lot of missed moves there with, picking up Pelfrey and Mike Aviles, and, Jordan Zimmerman turned out to be a mistake, but you couldn't know that. He had never had any health problems. Justin Upton is Justin Upton. He's really streaky. And he was fantastic the last 6 weeks of the season, but he was terrible for the first 4.5 months. So I don't think you can put all the blame on Brad, but I think there's better options out there, and I would probably make a replacement because in 3 years I haven't seen enough progress from him.
Now, speaking of Avila, you brought him up, and you brought up some, poor decisions he made. What grade would you give him in his first full season as Tigers general manager?
I would probably give him about a C-. Like I said, Jordan Zimmerman was great for the first month of the season, and then he got hurt. And Upton was fantastic in the last 6 weeks. But you didn't need to be a rocket scientist to know that Zimmerman and Upton were good the guys who I thought were mistakes, and K-Rod turned out to be a fantastic acquisition. The guys who I thought were mistakes were more like, with Mark Lowe, you were counting on him to repeat the fluky season he had for 4 months with Seattle last season when he'd been in the minors the 2 years before that. I didn't understand the Pelfrey signing. I didn't understand the Mike Avila. I wrote about this at the time. I didn't understand the Mike Avila signing. I didn't see what role he played for the Tigers where he was going to help. And the other problem is, of course, is the minor league system. I was looking. They had 4 players this year who produced 1 WAR or more who they drafted. That's it. And 2 of those are Justin Verlander and Cameron Maybin, who they drafted a long time ago.
Yeah, ages ago.
The only 2 youngish guys who produced even 1 WAR for the Tigers that were Tigers draft picks were Kyle Ryan and Nick Castellanos.
Yeah, that's something in itself right there, Dave. And you brought up Jordan Zimmermann and his struggles in the second half, him getting hurt. What do you expect from him in 2017?
From everything that we've been told and everything we can see, none of his injuries are long-term. It's not like he's got a bad shoulder, a bad elbow. It's all back problems, groin problems, neck problems. So he should be fully healthy for spring training. And if he's fully healthy, as we saw at the beginning of this season when he was fully healthy, he's still a perfectly very good pitcher. He was the American League Pitcher of the Month for April. So I suspect he'll be fine. The problem was he got hurt this year, and it wasn't handled well. They kept bringing him back before he was healthy, and he kept having cascade injuries off the original injury, and he just never got healthy in the last 3 quarters of the season.
Who do you blame that on more, Avila or Ausmus, for the mishandling of Jordan Zimmermann?
Well, I think some of it's got to fall on the training staff. And the team doctors, they were the ones that were saying that he was ready to come back. And, that's their job, is to tell Ausmus and Avila when players are ready to return. And part of that's on Zimmermann. I think he was pushing too hard. He wanted to be pitching, and he kept telling them he was fine when he wasn't. And I think he's admitted that. And then they just got into a bad situation at the end where, he was pitching sim games and not looking great, and they felt like they had to give him a shot. He pitched 1 decent relief outing in that blowout against Kansas City, and they thought it was enough to give him that start on Saturday, and it didn't work out.
Dave, really quick, before I let you go here on episode 60 of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company, and Dave Hogg is joining me courtesy of the Top Cat Sales phone line. Almost forgot to mention that. I wanted to give a plug there really quick. But, Dave, the last question for you today is about your World Series prediction. Who do you have winning the American League and the NL, and who do you have coming out on top in the 2016 Fall Classic?
I think it's going to be something that none of us ever thought we would see. I'm picking the Cubs to beat the Red Sox in the World Series.
How great would that be for Major League Baseball, for the Raiders? That would be a Raiders bonanza.
That would probably be the highest rated World Series in decades. I can't imagine how big that would be. Maybe Cubs-Yankees in a different year would be bigger, but Cubs-Red Sox will just be enormous. And I think it would be great. I think those are clearly the 2 best teams, but it's a short series postseason system, so anything can happen. But if I had to bet, that's my bet, is Cubs over the Red Sox.
All right, and very good. Dave Hogg, with that, I'll let you go here on episode 60 of Tigers Talk. Always great chatting with you. Best of luck to you as well, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
And that was Mr. Dave Hogg of the Associated Press and of today's Knuckleball.com. He has written about the Tigers, Detroit sports, about, the Red Wings. I think he's even covering them now more going into this, regular season for the Wings. So he's a big-time name in the local media market, and always great chatting with him as he knows a lot about baseball and the Tigers specifically.
And he brought up a point that we're going to debate about is, and we didn't talk about it in the opening segment, was maybe the best way you improve this team is not to deconstruct it like I said, but maybe just chop off the leader and maybe start over with a brand new man in charge.
Skipper? Or Avila being fired, because he's not going to be. And not to cut you off, but we have another guest joining us via the Detroit Free Press, and that is my friend, my colleague from the Freep, and Marlowe Alter, who will chat with us about Brad Ausmus and his fate in Motown. We'll be right back. Hey guys, it's Vito Chirco from Top Cat Sales in downtown Royal Oak, Michigan. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or your corporation? Well, if so, then look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan quarterback John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the very highest quality and the very best service. So get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going online to TopCatTeamSales.com. Once again, the website is TopCatTeamSales.com. And remember to follow Top Cat Sales on Twitter at Team Top Cat. And now, joining me on episode number 60 of Tigers Talk is a man who admitted to watching half of the Work music video from Rihanna. That is Marlowe Alter of the Detroit Free Press. Marlowe, what's going on today?
Hey, I'm a big fan of Rihanna. What can I say? I'm not alone.
I was going to say more the reason why I brought it up is because you didn't watch the whole entire video. It wasn't for just watching half of it, because I watched the whole entire video, Marlowe. So just to let you know. You're busier.
Procrastinating at work.
That's what it is. So anyways, Marlowe, a lot to chat about regarding the Tigers. And really, the first and foremost question for you and everybody right now about the Tigers is, should we as fans be, and as people that cover the Tigers, be disappointed with the finish of the Tigers this season? Or maybe satisfied because of how they came in with lowered expectations after, their dead last finish in the AL Central in 2015?
Yeah, I mean, anytime that you have a payroll of $200 million or whatever, and top 5 in baseball, they went out and threw a chunk of money at Zimmerman and Upton. I mean, I had them around 84, 85 wins, so I kind of expected this type of season, but at the same time, they did navigate a bunch of adversity. But I mean, in the end, the talent was there. They had it all in front of them in the last weekend, playing, one of the worst teams in baseball in the Braves, and they couldn't get it done. So I think Tigers fans have to be disappointed for sure. I mean, the talent is there, like I said. And, this era of Tiger baseball is kind of nearing its end, I feel like. Some of the aging stars with Miggy and Verlander had incredible seasons, and they still couldn't sneak into the playoffs. So I think it's definitely a tough pill to swallow.
Were those seasons of Miggy, of JV, wasted because they didn't get into the playoffs and because those guys are up there in age, as you noted?
I mean, I wouldn't say they're wasted. I mean, I think it gives them confidence going in next year that, they still have the core intact, and these guys are still, maybe they're not at their peak of their prime, but, they're still at the back end of their prime. I mean, what Verlander did was unbelievable to me. I didn't really believe in him after some of the injuries he's, gone, had to battle through all the innings he's pitched, and to come out and do what he did this year definitely shut up a bunch of critics. And Miggy just keeps plugging along. So I wouldn't say it's a wasted year from them, but at the same time, I mean, I'm not sure if you can expect both of those guys to produce like they did next year. So they're going to have to find more production from other players.
Well, are you worried about other guys reproducing what they did this season too, such as Cameron Maybin, who had a career season, Nick Castellanos, who had a career season, Fulmer as a rookie having obviously a career year as a rookie, and seeing what will be produced by those guys? We don't know. We don't know what to expect. So could you say they wasted the seasons of those guys too? And more importantly, should we be concerned about what those guys can produce in 2017?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's kind of unbelievable how many guys had huge seasons, and yet they were, a few games back. I know they dealt with some injuries, but, most teams have injuries, so I wouldn't say that's a huge, a valid excuse, I guess. But in terms of being wasted, no, I mean, I don't think it's wasted, like I said. I mean, Fulmer's got confidence now. I think they can rely on him. Some of the other guys, Norris stepped up. Boyd showed some things, so. But at the same time, it's hard for me to see all these guys, producing the same type of years that they did. Guys like Maybin, he could be gone. So they're going to have to find other guys to step up. Maybe a guy like Jacoby Jones, Iglesias and Upton kind of, were inconsistent. So maybe they can get better years from them, and that's kind of where they make up production. But, we'll see.
Marlowe, the Tigers fell short, though, to sum it up, and they teased us towards the end of the season as it looked like they might get in. Then they had their hot stretches, but all the injuries kind of caught up. But still, it's not a valid excuse, as you said, when you look at these other teams that made it into the playoffs. The Mets with all their injuries. These teams that weren't that consistent and were hampered by injuries as well, just like the Tigers. And the Tigers failed to make it in with their huge payroll. Got to bring up that point as well, and then bring up the point about the manager, whether or not he should come back as skipper in 2017 for a fourth year on the job. What is your take on that?
I don't think Brad has done as bad a job as some people make it out to be. But I think I'm on the side where, look, they had all this talent here. They have to win right now with, like I said, with some of the aging guys that they have. And even though some of the youngsters stepped up and maybe this team's future is a little brighter than maybe some of us thought, at the same time, all these guys having career years, and they couldn't get it done when they needed to. I feel like Brad, it never worked out. He would pinch run for Miggy or something in a tie game, and he wouldn't score, and then that spot would come up in the lineup, in a huge spot later, a couple innings later. It just, even if he made the right decision, it just never really worked out for them. So I feel like maybe a new voice would be best. And like I said, I don't think he's done a horrible job, but with all the talent that they have, and even though he kind of kept them fairly consistent with some of the big blows that they had, the talent is there, and it's just kind of frustrating to see them not be able to come through when they need to against the worst teams.
Marlowe Alter of the Detroit Free Press, joining me courtesy of the Top Cat Sales phone line. And Marlowe, because of my huge stature, that we have a segment on here called Big Vito's Over Under. So we got to play it right now with you and Brad Ausmus coming back. The odds now of him coming back, are they over or under 50%, in your opinion?
It's tough. I would just mess with you and say 50%, but I think
yeah, the joke.
Yeah, the longer it goes, I mean, the more I have a feeling that he's going to stick around. These next couple of days are obviously huge. I feel like if they made the move, it would be then. But right now, I'm kind of going to have to go with the over. I think he's going to be back just because he kept the team afloat, and maybe they figured he got a lot out of some of the young guys, and maybe they feel like how Avila feels like another year he's earned his last year, and they'll see where they go from there.
And subsequently, Tigers fans all over the place now, after listening to that, Marlowe, are yelling no, no, no at the top of their lungs.
Oh, yeah.
I think
so. I see it on Twitter all the time, believe.
Yeah, I know you got to see it. And we all are weeping right now about the Tigers' finish, about, the Tigers possibly entertaining the idea of bringing back Ausmus and actually following through with that. And moving on, though, from the Tigers really quick to the postseason. And your Phillies aren't in it. Our Tigers aren't in it. So we still got to, at least I'm going to watch, and we still got to pick somebody to win it all. So for you, the AL and NL pennant winners are going to be whom, and who do you have coming out on top in the 2016 Fall Classic?
Yeah, I'm going to go with chalk on the National League side. I really think it's the Cubs' year, especially with, the Nationals losing Strasburg. It looks like, he's out for the NLDS, probably not going to pitch in the NLCS either. So I think that's a big blow for the Nationals, and the Cubs' rotation is fantastic with Lester, Arrieta, John Lackey, and then the lineup's been pretty consistent. So I got to go with them. And out of the AL, I got to take the Red Sox, to your chagrin and everyone else's chagrin. With Big Papi, I just kind of, I have that feeling, that magical feeling for the Red Sox. So I think, they'll ride Big Papi, and I think it'll be Cubs Red Sox, and I'm going to take the Cubs. I think the curse is broken. I think for once, the best team in baseball will win it all, and I think that's going to be this year.
Marlowe, are you a big supporter of Big Papi? Really quick.
He's a fun guy. I can't hate him. I mean, I'm not a Tigers fan, but I understand, he's been a killer for years, but I can't hate on the guy. He seems like a good guy.
All right, Doc, hang up on him. No. Anyway, he has been clutch, a postseason hero. He's won World Series championships, and going out on top in his final season in the Bigs would be pretty incredible. So I'll leave you and everybody else with that at home. Marlowe, thank you very much, as usual, for joining me on Tigers Talk, and we'll talk again very soon.
All right, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Vito.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, Vito, now you have to go tell your colleagues. If you just listen to that, he said, thanks, Dom.
Dom, I know it's Doc. I heard it too. Now, he thought my brother was on, I think, though. So I'll give him that much. There is a Dom. And Dom is alive and well and will be on this edition of the podcast perhaps as well, coming up in just a few minutes, Doc. So that's good. We'll be able to hear from him. And he always has a lot of takes on Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and it actually worked out. The schedule kind of cleared out later on in the afternoon, so we got as much time as we want to debate and to take this further. But a lot of people are talking. I'm really surprised, Vito, at the media's kind of change of heart and talking about Brad Ausmus. There's a serious debate going on. I thought it's overwhelming. As I sit here, I'm like, let's bring on a new manager. People are like examining Brad Ausmus and wondering, are we passing up the next great manager? Are we missing out on something here? Listen, sports is a tough business, and it's a business where it's results-oriented. And if you say, is it fair to let him go? You could argue, no, it's not fair. But when you got a $200 million payroll, when you got declining attendance, when you got the results that speak for themselves, a lot of people are saying, well, Brad Ausmus, there were so many injuries this year. A lot of excuses are being made. But you got to remember, Cleveland, the Dodgers, the Mets, everybody has injuries. There are situations where Brad Ausmus just didn't do enough and make enough good decisions to help this team get over the hump. And so the people that say, well, Brad Ausmus is a guy that is learning on the job, is getting better, all you got to realize is look at the numbers. He is basically a 500 manager. And I don't see this team becoming a consistent 100-game winner year in, year out in the postseason like a Boston or like some of these other teams like the Cubs or the Indians or other teams that are on the rise. I don't see it. And so what does it say, though, Vito? Why is the attendance down 20% the last couple of years? Why is the trend going down that people are not going to Comerica Park as much as they used to? Why? One of the reasons, I believe, is Brad Ausmus.
Well, you know what? It's because of lackluster results. They kind of gave up, I think, after last season's poor finishing in last in the AL Central. I think people kind of gave up, jumped off the bandwagon big time. So the lack of people showing up to the ballpark on a consistent basis this season, last year, collectively, the last two seasons, would be because of the lackluster results on the field. You have to have a good product, right? I think you do, to sell to the fans, to let them know, well, you should put your butts in the seats. If you don't have a good product to sell to the fans, they're not going to show up on a consistent basis. I don't care how big of a baseball fan you are, because it's still pricey to go to a ball game right now at Comerica Park. It really is. All the money for concessions, food, drinks, parking. How about parking? You got to pay for parking. And they're not doing well. Why are you going to pay for parking and all those concessions, right? To eat, to drink, which you kind of want to do when you're at something at a venue for 3 hours at a time. As a Tigers game, baseball game generally is about 3 hours in length. So I think it's more because of lackluster results. Now, has Brad Ausmus helped out or maybe hindered the productivity of the team and helped produce those lackluster results? Well, I'm of the mindset big time that he has contributed to the lackluster results on the ball field the last two seasons specifically. And he held them back a little bit, at least a little bit, from getting into the playoffs this year. And I wanted to ask you, I asked Dave Hogg for a grade, remember, of Brad Ausmus. What do you think is the grade that we should be giving Brad Ausmus for this past season specifically?
D+.
Okay.
D+, no doubt about it. He's not failing in that team was above 500. You said there was a 12-game improvement, but it's not acceptable. It's not average. It's not good enough. Brad Ausmus, his job was to take this team and move it to the next level. And unfortunately, the trend has gone the total opposite way, where the team was a bullpen reliever away from maybe getting past Boston, going up 2-0, and they come back and they go and play a series versus Baltimore. You get 0 wins. Then you finish last in the division in year 2. Now, year 3, you go, okay, you're the last team eliminated, and you play all the way to game 161. But unfortunately, when you look at it, there's no postseason with this squad. And the payroll was too high, and you would say that a lot of it falls on the feet of Brad Ausmus. It's unfortunately, it ends with him. And he's the manager of the club. He had 3 years, and I know that people are saying he knows the organization is high on him. They feel like they don't want to, send him out there, and then some other squads are going to pick him up, and they get the benefit of him. But I don't believe he'll be a winning manager, at least in the postseason, for another 3-4 years. If he goes to Minnesota, you think he's going to turn that team around to be a World Series caliber squad?
They don't want him to come to Minnesota. They're doing everything that they can. They would do everything that they can to avoid that, to prevent that from happening in Minnesota. He's not the guy to put your team over the top, in so many words. He's not going to take your team to the World Series all of a sudden. He's not that good of a manager to do that.
Is he going to take a team like Arizona or Colorado or a team out west to the promised land? No. So let him go. Let him go and try
to manage one of those teams, right? Because he's not going to resurrect one of those franchises, in so many words. That's to say the least.
So you were in agreement the whole way that Brad Ausmus is not the guy, and it's time, in your opinion, to get a new manager.
Have you listened to me at all on this podcast?
Yes.
But no, it's the same thing. I mean, I think he's worth right now, his grade that we should be giving him is a C at best. That might be almost too high of a grade. Like, I'm being nice by giving him a C. I would say a C- to a C. And that's the highest you give to him for his managerial campaign of 2016. Because he still wasn't great. Wasn't good enough. He improved barely in some circumstances, such as, well, the big thing that he did this season really was sitting Justin Upton. Then Upton came to life, had a great July, a great, outstanding September. One of the best. He was the best player in baseball, I think, from August 20th on, in every single major statistical category, pretty much, as a hitter. So he was great, and Brad Ausmus contributed to that a little bit to Upton's production late in the season. Also, his ability to kind of see that a guy like Shane Green wasn't a high-leverage situation kind of relief pitcher anymore, and reducing him from that role and putting him in a lesser role, in less high-leverage situations. You got to also pat the back of Brad Ausmus for that. But after those two things that are relatively notable things, after those two things, you have nothing really to pat the back of Brad Ausmus for. He didn't really contribute anything else more efficiently or successfully to the Tigers unit and season in 2016. And that's why he should be on his way out. But I think more and more, as I've talked about ad nauseum really here about Brad Ausmus and the Tigers' decision for what they're going to do with them, I've brought up that I think more and more they're going to bring him back for a fourth year in Motown as Tiger skipper. Because also, you see all these people writing these kind of PR, puffy pieces about Brad Ausmus and what he's done for the Tigers and how he would be picked up instantaneously by another organization. Like you said, though, let that happen. Cut ties and let's see what happens, because his ability to resurrect another franchise isn't going to pay dividends. It's not going to turn out to be the case where he resurrects a franchise. I don't think he's that good of a skipper. An in-game strategy guy, he has failed countless times, right? He's not that kind of guy that can just adapt to situations and when during a game, adjust on the fly to make the right in-game adjustments. He's not that good in-game adjustment kind of guy. He's not a guy full of strategy. Doesn't really know the numbers, the analytics, doesn't use analytics or numbers to really back up what he does make for decisions in a game, with going to the bullpen, with maybe pinch hitting for a guy. As we saw with Steven Moya, him being left on the bench all that time in September when you're pinch hitting Eric Ibar for Casey McGee, a guy in Casey McGee who had a hugely subpar campaign in 2016, was a minor leaguer, was in AAA for how long? In the first half of this season, and was a minuscule producer at the plate in the second half of this season. And you still don't go to Steven Moya, who got it done in AAA, got it done with the Tigers when he was up in the first half, and really only was brought down to AAA because of his lack of defensive prowess in the corner outfield. So he had a stick, could get it done with the stick. So why not put him in the 8th or 9th in a pinch hitting situation for one AB? Maybe he can run into one, because for certain Casey McGee was not going to run into one. So he made so many miscues throughout the season to the point where there's no doubt in my mind that you can't bring him back for a fourth year in Motown if you plan on winning, building a winner, and sustaining some kind of success going forward into 2017 and beyond. So that's my full entire take about Ausmus. I give him a C, and that's me being nice for what he did this season because of a few minuscule improvements, but overall-wise, still many more mistakes than improvements or quality decisions from Brad Ausmus in games throughout the 2016 campaign, Doc.
Well, the fans on Twitter at Detroit Podcast are in agreement. They want Brad gone. There's not too many people that follow us that are really in support of Brad Ausmus, and a lot of people have sent in messages regarding our debate. And unfortunately for you, they're leaning more towards the DOC, in that the Tigers need to rebuild.
See, because that's the drastic take. If you know more about the sport, more about the game, more about the team, the Tigers, that is, and what they have to work with going forward, not to ridicule your intelligence and baseball acumen and Tigers acumen, but it's about this. Tigers have a solid 1 through 3 for next season. If they improve the pen and get quality seasons again out of their bats, they're going to be all right in 2017 and have a chance to even win the division title. You got to also look at their division, the respective teams inside of their division, who you have to compete with. Tigers don't have a huge amount of competition. The Royals will probably be where they are again next season. The Twins will be towards the bottom of the AL Central once again. The White Sox won't be that much improved. They're moving on from Robin Ventura, probably going to have a retooling season in 2017. And then the Tribe, they're going to get back Michael Brantley, could be as good, but they're not going to be any better. So the Tigers, I think, are not going to get worse, but only could get better in 2017 with more health on their side. And that's just what I see out of the Tigers. I see some productivity that the Tigers didn't get in 2016 that they will be getting in 2017.
by cutting payroll, by having
trimming
the
payroll
same,
a little bit,
and having the same manager, and
not the same manager. I know because we're thinking right now he's coming back, right? The odds right now are over 50%. That is to say the least about Brad Ausmus returning as Tiger skipper in 2017.
So, Vito, when you debate somebody, you don't have to say, well, if you knew more about baseball, then you'd come my way. What I'm saying is that if you want to scale back and discuss what perspective I'm taking, if you don't want to go back to 2014 when they hired Brad Ausmus, let's just start at 2006. They got to the World Series, and then shortly after that, they had a few lean years. They got back. I think the best year the best opportunity that they had was when they had Scherzer, Price, and Verlander, or the year that they lost to Boston when they were up 1-0, and I believe that was 2013.
2013,
in Jim Leland's last year. You say, okay, now when are you going to really say that this era is over? Are you just going to ride out and let Miguel be 45 years old, JV being 38, 39, before you say, okay? I would say that the argument now needs to be opened up whether these guys should retire as a Detroit Tiger, because they've done enough. They've earned their respect. They're valued members of the community and the organization, but I want to win a World Series, and I want to rebuild the organization. When I say rebuild the organization, I also mean you have to rebuild the minors. You've traded off a lot of pieces to get this talent here. And so let's say, for example, next year you have all these nice, young, trimmed pieces that you brought on board, and you're like, great, this is going good. All of a sudden, Cameron Maybin, again, out for 4 weeks. Boom, the Indians decide to plunk Miguel Cabrera in the head, and he's out for 4 weeks. Who are you going to go look to? You brought up Kate. Look at the guys they brought in from the minors. It was all garbage. We're looking at, and we were all hollering, oh my God, they're not batting Stephen Moya over Tyler Collins. Stephen Moya's garbage too.
He's not garbage. He's not as quality as he's not a major league starting outfielder. He's not, but as a quality bench option off the bench to pinch hit in the late innings, why not bring him in? Brad Ausmus, that's his fault right there for not bringing in a guy that's more quality at least than what he was using. It's still that comes down to that what Brad Ausmus was using, right? The players he was using were not as good as guys that were sitting on his bench. That's on Brad Ausmus right there. But I get your point a little bit with Moya. He's not a high quality major league starter anytime soon.
What I'm saying
Won't
is
be anytime soon.
You can upgrade across the majority of positions outside of Miguel, outside of maybe JV and Zimmerman and Fulmer. 4 guys. After that, I could look and improve the entire roster and say, boom, move along. And you brought up an interesting point in that you told everybody that you want to improve the shortstop position. And you sparked off a lot of tweets, a lot of likes I had to get that day, and a lot of comments going, well, how are you going to upgrade a guy that's in the top 10 at his position in Jose Iglesias?
Top 5, somebody said, I think.
Is that true?
I think top 5 in all of baseball, the guy pointed out. And that's ludicrous because even in the American League, based on his stats, he's not even top 5 in the AL, by the way.
So
my brother said there's like 13 guys from 13 other American League ball clubs that are ahead of Jose Iglesias. And I believe my brother as being true most of the time. And if you look even in our division, Doc, how about the Indians? Francisco Lindor. Isn't he better? He's better. Okay. The White Sox, Tim Anderson, a youngster who already looks kind of better than Jose Iglesias. So you got 2 guys already right off the bat. Alcides Escobar, Gold Glove caliber shortstop for the Royals. He's better. The only team in the AL Central without a guy better than Jose Iglesias or leaps and bounds above Iglesias is the Twins, who are a dismal ball club. That's the last place team in your division, the only team that doesn't have a better shortstop than you. And that guy says Iglesias is a top 5 shortstop in all of baseball? He's not even in the American League. And he's not even the best shortstop in his own division. And he's next to last for shortstops in his own division. So that's why you can move on from him.
So what's your thesis? What's going on here with Jose Iglesias? What are you seeing as his deficiencies? How can we improve upon that position in your mind?
Get a better hitter, a guy that can hit above 250, get on base more often. Now, he's got this good rate with seeing a lot of pitches and not striking out that frequently. So, I mean, that's good in his defense. Like 1 every 10 times he strikes out. That's a good quality thing in his defense for why he maybe is a starting shortstop and the flashy plays that he does make. So, and he kind of cut down on the hot dogging. Remember, he was a ham last year and in previous memory. This season, not as much with that. Still made the high-quality plays, but the routine plays, he still boots some balls or doesn't make those throws over plays, let's just say in general, that he should be making. That can be labeled routine. So he still struggles with that at least a little bit. And with the bat, he struggles highly with the bat. He's got to be better. He's got to be more productive. At this stage in his career, I think we know what he is, and what he is a guy that hits 250 or below as an everyday starting shortstop. That's all he is as an everyday shortstop. Everyday starting shortstop kind of defeats the purpose of, they both mean the same thing. So either everyday or starting shortstop. My point is that he's not the greatest all-around starting shortstop. You can move on and get better. You can upgrade by moving on from Jose Iglesias to something else, is what I'm trying to say, Doc.
Okay, and so is there anybody in the minors or any kind of situation that you're anybody that you're targeting, or you just say that he needs to improve? Now, defensively, he's a guy that's pretty solid. He does a decent job over there at shortstop. Turns a lot of double plays, has improved his range, and he, by all accounts, had a really solid defensive season in 2016. Anybody you're targeting, or you just say maybe you just got to really find a way to improve, his offensive capabilities?
It's like how you move on from Big Pelf, Mike Pelfrey. You say, "Hey, Big Pelf, see ya. You take a bus and don't ever come back here to Motown." It's kind of like that, almost not to the same degree with Jose Iglesias, but you can move on to bigger and better options at shortstop. That's what I'm trying to say. Not that I have a particular name in mind, so I can't give you that right now, but there are better shortstops just in your own division. So maybe try to make a trade for a shortstop. And you got to see what's out there. There are other better options out there with the bat, specifically, better than Jose Iglesias in that department big time.
And you said that at age 26, you don't see him improving. This is what he is in your mind.
It is what he is. And the other guy now to bring up regarding that is James McCann, who I still see growing, maybe. But leaps and bounds getting better at the plate as a major league hitter. I don't see McCann becoming much better either in that department. That's my concern with him going forward as a starting catcher for the Tigers. He's a mechanic, can throw out runners at a premium rate. Best in baseball almost. So the stats back it up, but his hitting stats are not where they should be, Doc, as a starting catcher. And catchers don't hit great. They don't on a consistent basis. They can get away with hitting 240, 250. But McCann didn't even do that. What did he hit this year? It was dismal. He was hovering around the Mendoza line all season long, had the injury, and maybe the injury bug just defeated him this season, his production at the plate. So maybe next year, with him being more healthy perhaps, and still being on the younger side, really, really young as a big league catcher, maybe he can develop into something more as a consistent hitter at the plate. Thing is, I'm not putting too much hope into that being the case for James McCann in 2017. So I have some concern with him as well, but I think they keep him and should keep him as a starting catcher for 2017. Now, maybe getting a more high-quality backup that can hit above 200 would be what they should be looking to do. Trying to upgrade in that department, in that backup catcher position, because I don't think Jared Saltalamacchia can be your guy as a backup next season full-time. He can't be. You got to move on and get another player to be that backup. And I think, as I said before about Iglesias, try to get another shortstop that is more valuable with the bat, Doc.
So all around, is Dom available for us, or are we going to dial him up, or is he a busy man?
We're going to try to dial him up right now here.
Okay, what's Dom going to bring to the table on this episode number 60?
He'll probably kill Brad Ausmus, just like I did. We'll talk about his White Sox moving on from Robin Ventura to their bench coach, Rick Renteria. Renteria taking over as a manager in 2017 on the south side of Chicago. So we'll talk about all of that and his postseason predictions. Who he sees winning it all in 2016 as well, Doc.
All right, let's dial him up.
And now, joining me on episode number 60 of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company, courtesy once again of the Top Cat Sales phone line, is my brother, mi hermano, Dominic Joseph Chirco. Dom, what's going on today?
Not much. Glad to be back on the show, Reed.
All right, thank you, man. Now, let's go right into it. And the Tigers kind of teased us this year. Now, they were inconsistent all year long, but towards the end, as the stretch run really picked up, they looked like they might get in. And I almost assumed they would after seeing, well, they had to play the Braves the final weekend of the season, and you blow it as big as they did, losing 2 out of 3. Now, were your expectations at that point going into that weekend series that they could at least force a game 162? And as Tigers fans, not you, not that you're included, but for me and for other Tigers fans, should we be disappointed with the outcome of this 2016 campaign?
Yeah, well, I thought the outcome obviously is much to be desired. And what we saw this past weekend in Atlanta was not typical of what you'd expect from a Tigers team that is superior to a lesser team. The Tigers have actually beaten up on some really bad teams this year, including the team in their division against the Twins. So looking at it, the Tigers, I thought they would win 2 out of 3 in Atlanta. They didn't, and here we are today, and we're thinking about us. You're thinking about Ausmus. What do you do with him? You're thinking about all the questions, all the injuries, and then you think to yourself, well, I mean, what happened? And what happened was they folded under pressure. Their hitting subsided. They weren't consistent all year, and it bit them in the bullet.
How pitiful was it for the Tigers to succumb to the pitching of Aaron Blair on Saturday, who had an 8-something ERA going into that start?
Yeah, Aaron Blair was mightily struggling. In the starts in Atlanta, his ERA was north of 4 in Atlanta, and obviously another thing with him, he's been a fly ball pitcher too. But the Tigers, I don't know what it is, but sometimes they what they showed was they were exceedingly underperforming against inferior pitching. And Aaron Blair, who is a top 10 prospect in the Braves farm system, it doesn't look like they did enough studying or they saw enough tape on him, which, I mean, that's what it looks like, because if you really, he's a 3-pitch pitcher. He did a good job mixing in that curve. But then again, the hitters, after the second and third time in the lineup, they didn't really make adjustments, and it hurt them. Obviously, a career high in strikeouts. And between those two starters, Teheran and Blair, what did they have? 26 strikeouts between those two guys. So very disappointing.
Now, Dominic, your White Sox had a very disappointing 2016 campaign. It cost Robin Ventura his job, and now they turn to bench coach Rick Renteria, the former manager of the north side of Chicago team in the Chicago Cubs. Now, what do you expect from him in 2017?
I expect a more vibrant, upbeat clubhouse. Really nothing against Robin. Robin was he was kind of more reserved. He was mute on a lot of subjects. He didn't like too many questions. He was similar to Awesomeness in that respect, where he's not really open to talking about what goes on, and how he sees the team improve. Obviously, he made bad decisions, but you're going to see a more vibrant team, a clubhouse, really a team that needs a leader. It got leaders to step up. Obviously, what happened at the beginning of the season in that clubhouse with Adam LaRoche and Drake LaRoche's son didn't pan out. And what happened in the clubhouse with Chris Sales cutting up uniforms. You're going to see more upbeat. Obviously, guys say they liked Renteria. Guys have spoken up for him. Obviously, they had to make other decisions, especially not just personnel, but management decisions. They probably had to move on from one of Hahn or Williams, but next year you're going to see a team that at least wants to be out there. Obviously, they started off well even with what happened, but I think they'll be more attuned to a fresh look and a more upbeat clubhouse.
Dom, who wins the 2016 Fall Classic?
Okay, well, now we're getting into the Fall Classic here. Okay.
Well, you didn't like that, Dom? What are you trying to tell me? We're trying to get things going here. Are you criticizing my questioning here of you?
No, I thought you were going to ask me a follow-up question about the...
No, we're moving quick here, Dom. Come on, man. No time for that.
Okay, so what was the question? Who's going to get to the World Fall Classic?
Yes, who's winning, Dom?
Okay, well, I think it's going to be an interesting postseason. Obviously, the Cubs have a 26% chance of winning the World Series. But obviously, as we've seen in the past, the playoffs are a crapshoot. So in the NL, I'm going to say the Giants beat the Cubs. I think they're going to beat the Cubs in the NLDS. So I have the Giants facing off against the Giants, and then in the AL, I have the Blue Jays and the Indians, and I have the Blue Jays and the Giants playing the who are they playing this next? I'm going to go with in his final year. I mean, I don't know. I think the Rangers have the best bullpen, and bullpens can win championships. I got them in the World Series facing off against the Giants again, a rematch of World Series 6 years ago. So in that series, I like the Rangers beating the Giants.
But Dom, how about the even year factor for the Giants?
Yeah, I think it's obviously a testament to how good they can bounce back after an odd year. Bochy, and it's definitely a resilient bunch. I like the guys in the clubhouse. I like Hunter Pence's attitude, very philosophical, and they're going to want it. Jake Peavy. You talk about the guys at the end of the season, the last game of the season. Jake said we're coming back here, and obviously they had a wild card game on the road. So obviously it's one of those events where, I mean, really what happened the last time the Giants made the World Series? Obviously Hunter Pence got those guys. They were down 2-0 to the Reds, I think, and he huddled those guys up before the game, had a pep talk like it's like a little league baseball game or even an NFL game, got those guys pumped up, and look what happened. They rolled from there. And another thing too, Madison Bumgarner. I don't think there's a pitcher in the postseason that you would want to lean on, and they can lean on in the postseason, such as Madison Bumgarner. So yeah, I like the Giants, but I just think the Rangers, as long as the Rangers, which makes them unique from other teams, is they can use their bullpen. Their bullpen just went through 36 scoreless inning streak. So they're pitching to the right direction. Obviously, you have Hamels, who's been an ace for them in the second half. I just think, honestly, their lineup is set, and I think they're just a tad bit better. They're going to get revenge on the Giants.
Now, Dominic, Cole Hamels, you brought up him. He's a AL Cy Young caliber arm that's a candidate this season for the award. I don't think he'll win it, but here are my top 5 Cy Young guys for this season, at the end of this season. Right now I have Kluber winning it, Porcello number 2, JV number 3, Masahiro Tanaka, the Yankees number 4, and Aaron Sanchez of the Blue Jays number 5. So I have Corey Kluber winning it. And I did before. I still have him winning it. Now, Verlander moved up in the rankings and could be a viable candidate to win it in 2016. Dom, who do you have winning the AL Cy Young?
Well, I actually have Kluber winning it, but I have Verlander finishing just ahead of Porcello. What we saw from Verlander was vintage Verlander. Obviously, if you look at his ERA, obviously, I mean, he just was 10th of a point short of the ERA title. But again, he led the American League in strikeouts. He did so much for the Tigers, and not just being the best pitcher. I mean, I thought coming into the season that he would only be a number 3, good 2 option, and then you see this, and you're also thinking to yourself, well, if he's pitching this well, the Tigers must have 90 wins, and then you don't see it. But yeah, Verlander to me is just going to fall short of the Cy Young title. I think Kluber notches it up. Obviously, advanced statistics point in his direction this year. But it's a slight edge just behind Kluber, and I have Verlander finishing second. I just moved Porcello to third, Tanaka fourth, and
Sanchez Chris Sale number 5. So he's still in your top 5. I have him moving out to number 6 in my American League Cy Young rankings. And Dom, with that, I will let you go. I will see you at home. All right, Dom.
All right, see you.
Thank you, man. Bye-bye.
Ooh, Vito, what a podcast. We just blinked and 80 minutes just flew by.
Jam-packed, man. Now, really quick for you, who is your Cy Young winner in the American League?
100% I got Corey Kluber. I agree with you. Man, if you're Justin Verlander, and you deserve at least 2 or 3 more wins because he pitched some great games and the offense just didn't support him. And it's a tough thing. And what really stunk at the end of the year was watching kind of, your guy go out there in a key game on Sunday and basically shut everybody down, but the offense didn't arrive and didn't show up, and it just really stunk, and it was really sad to see. But unfortunately, 2016 happened. Tigers are not involved, but Corey Kluber will win. The Tigers probably aren't going to win too many awards this year, but hey, they don't deserve it.
Porcello won 22 games for the Bo Sox. Think about Verlander, what he would have won in Beantown this season with all that run support from the Red Sox. He would have won 22 probably easily as well, Doc.
No doubt about it.
And Doc, your toast of the town for the season, who would it be? I guess your Tigers MVP.
Wow, that's great. It's going to be a tough one because can I think about it for 1 week and give it to you on episode 61? Because I think I'm going to have to kind of really delve into the numbers between. It's going to probably be in the top 3, either JV, Ian Kinsler, or Cameron Maben. It'll be one of those 3.
You very well can. Sit on it, wait on it, and we'll talk about it again next week on episode 61. Really quick, your World Series winner now. Who is that going to be for the Doc?
Ooh, I'm hoping, like everyone said, that it's going to be Boston versus Chicago because my interest right now in baseball has kind of diminished with what the Tigers did and how they faded. You thought that they would go to Atlanta and take care of business, and then Saturday and Sunday were tough. Offensive meltdown, basically. And so I'm a little bit jaded. I'm excited to see what Toronto can do. Boston's looking good. Everyone's talking about the Giants and the Cubs, but I'm interested to see how the other teams in the NL shake out, and maybe there'll be some competitive series as well. But if you ask me today, I'm going to say it's going to be the Cubs and Red Sox with the Red Sox winning in 7 games.
I have the Bo Sox facing off with the Nationals. I think Max Scherzer and Bryce Harper carry the Nats into the World Series and get it done, as they will be red hot and clutch in the World Series against the Red Sox, and Big Papi goes home without a World Series trophy and ring, and I am very happy with that being said. Now, my team that I've adopted is the Blue Jays, though. I want to see them win it. I am rooting them on to win it, but I don't think they will end up winning. Now, I think they will win, by the way, the one-game wildcard playoff Tuesday night, which will be taking place at the Rogers Center. I think they will get it done in terms of that, because, you know what? They are more than good enough to at least get that done. And then San Fran at the Mets on Wednesday in the one-game wildcard playoff in the NL. I think it's October and an even season. It is an even season, and I think the Giants with Madison Bumgarner, Mad Bum, I mean, who does it better? Like Dave Hogg said, like my brother said, nobody really does in the postseason, and that's why right now I am riding Bumgarner to get a victory in that one-game wildcard playoff Wednesday night.
Great podcast, sir. It went by too fast. All the guests appeared courtesy of the Top Cat sales phone line, and a great sponsor of ours. And you brought in some cool Michigan swag. Only you, I would let bring in some neat new swag and keep it up here on the mantle as part of our mantle of fame here.
Had to do it as part of now the Valiant product line, my boss's new apparel line, and it's got the U of M maize and blue, and anybody that comes in here now into the studio can don the hat there, and we will showcase it as well in some pictures and a video, and get the word out there more about the Valiant apparel line.
Ooh, maybe if we have some conversations, it does kind of have a nice ring. The DSP Valiant Studios.
How about that? Okay, so another way to plug Valiant.
Make a phone call or two. I don't have a problem, recording from the Valiant Studios here in Sterling Heights, Michigan.
That'd be pretty cool. A way to plug it.
Valiant is a nice word. It has kind of a powerful meaning for Vito. Vito's recording from the DSP Valiant Studios. I think we can make it happen for, an affordable price, if you know what I mean. Cha-ching, bada bing,
we
Vito.
got something in the works, maybe.
Okay.
We'll talk about it after this
Valiant
podcast.
Studios. And I would be willing to do that. Jason, now, I wish I could play it for you, but he had a comment for your podcast. It was funny. I'm going to play it for you off the air here, but it was funny because we made some news with the Motor City Sports Rant.
Talking trash about me, about the podcast, or about...
I'm going to play it for you.
You have to play it for me now.
I'll play it. So, good stuff, Vito. I look forward to episode 61 and recapping the year even further. Maybe talk about more in general. The team MVP, the most improved players, the avenue where this team needs to improve, and maybe there'll be some news made from now till the next recording regarding, was it 1 year offered to Brad? Was it 2? Was it a 2-year deal with one option? Or did they just go balls out and offer him 3?
Oh, my God, please, no. Please, I will be
3 years.
crying. I'll be crying all the way home if that's the case, Doc. And with that, thank you, Dave Hogg. Thank you, Marlowe Alter, and thank you, my brother, Dominic Chirco. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in as well, and tune in next week to another great edition of Tigers Talk. See you guys.
Stay valiant.